what to do. I guess I've been asking myself this question for several months now, and I really feel like I need some feedback. Long story short, I had both a physical and emotional affair that ended 8 months ago on D-Day. My husband and I have been together for 25 years, where there have been no infidelity on either side. We're trying to move forward. I feel I have showed much remorse over what I have done, and have given up all my freedom, passwords, etc. I think I kind of expected that would be enough for him to move forward and have the trust he once had in me. I feel guilty when I leave the house to visit friends, who he knows, or even grocery shopping. It seems it still triggers him to feel suspicious of my activities. I know he's having difficulty getting past the fact that I gave myself to someone else. He was my one and only. It seems to be blocking him somehow. So, what other things can I do to help my marriage recover? I really want to feel emotionally connected to him, and I feel like we're both holding back for whatever fears we may have. The only area that seems to have improved dramatically is our bonding life. Hysterical bonding is over, although it's pretty much just satisfying our needs. Not really romantic. I know what his triggers are because I used to lie so damn much about where I was going, etc. So, I know I have to work more on reassuring him that I know it bothers him that I'm going to certain places. But he also wants me to go out and have a good time. MC is something we tried, but he really lashed out at me during the sessions. Called me some horrible things, etc. Then the therapist felt sorry for me and took my side. Not good, I know. And was a male. The other therapist kept focusing on the fact that my husband may have ADHD. What the duck? So we stopped going. I brought it up in the last few days that I felt we really needed to talk about our needs and not focus on the affair as much, which we have talked about to death. He says he doesn't want to go now, kind of like I messed things up. I have to fix them. I know we need to go out together. We never do. We are so wrapped up with 2 young children and 1 adult child that we forget about ourselves. I get that the intimacy in our physical relationship is forever changed, and the bonding we have now is nothing like before. It's no really a loving emotional bonding. It's not bad, but just feels so different for us. I think being in my 40s and experiencing another lover awakened something in me that I'm exploring. But that's a topic for bonding and marriage, I guess. As for the bonding in our relationship, it hasn't been negative. And hubby has never mentioned that he feels as though other man was the elephant cloud in our bedroom. He's enjoying the new me, so to speak, and I'll leave it at that. I believe I have been selfish. Yes, me. I agree with that totally. And I haven't really looked at what I need to do for him so that he will feel secure and loved in our relationship. I've been wanting to move forward from the affair at lightning speed, and I really need to slow down and deal with the issues that arise, as well as the triggers that pop up occasionally. I miss the old him. I want to see him smile and laugh, and be at ease with being a great dad, and not so afraid that if he doesn't spend all his time with me, I'll feel as though my needs won't be met. Makes sense. Communication was never a problem within our marriage, except for the 8 months prior to my affair. Unfortunately, we're both social workers and we used to really talk about what we needed from each other. So what happened? Well, obviously it was my issues, a midlife crisis. I was unhappy with my job. I wanted more for myself and my family. I had 2 young children later in life and felt overwhelmed with what it entailed sometimes. Something I'm currently working on, although I should go back to. I see just seems every time I go to counseling, the same issues keep coming up about my parents. In terms of my mother's handicap, physical. Then there's issues around my father divorcing my mom while she was pregnant with my sister. Lots of stuff. But I really feel I've dealt with those issues, and the real issue as to what led to my affair was within myself and lack of self-fulfillment. But who knows? Sorry for rambling on. On a good note, hubby and I have a date tonight, something we used to do a lot of when we were dating, having a couple of drinks and playing a few games of pool. Let's hope I beat his ass tonight. We are pretty competitive. No doubt there are other issues that led to the affair. There was the aspect of someone else desiring me and giving me the compliments I so needed at that time. I didn't want to hear them only from my husband. It wasn't enough. I know it's going to be a tough and long road ahead of us. Initially, yes, I just wanted it to go away. Rug sweeping. But I now know that I cannot do that, and the real work starts here. The aftermath seems to be much worse than D-Day. I don't completely understand my husband's pain, no, but I see how it's affected him personally, and work-wise as well. And sometimes I wish could grab a magic wand, make his pain vanish. I want to make a 25-year marriage work and realize that I have to show him my remorse through actions as said on the board over and over, showing that he can one day trust me and not feel at times disgusted with my behavior. He once was totally devoted and I have destroyed that. I have to live with that for the rest of my life. For what an ego boost. Obviously not worth it. I believe that I would never put myself in a situation where I become so vulnerable that I would enter an affair again. Maybe I am wrong, but I feel that I can protect myself and my marriage by seeing the warning signs within myself and deal with those issues and share them with my husband. I guess what I meant was that the bonding in our marriage has improved 100%, and in saying that I felt that we had moved forward in that area. I guess I thought if the bonding was great, then everything else would fall into place. I was wrong. Is it a trade-off? I can't look at it that way. That's pretty selfish thinking, really. My husband found out about the affair through my emails to the other man. He always had access to everything I had. I always left my cell phone around. He had such blind trust in me. If only he had looked at my phone, he would have seen it all right in front of him. The affair was short, 3 months. It was one of the people we had renovating our home. Although I take complete responsibility in saying yes, he pursued me with all the famous lines. Everything I wanted to hear at the time. You see, as my husband points out, I was and still to a point very naive. It used to drive him crazy how I never saw a bad situation coming, or that people were manipulating me. On the other hand, it's what he loved about me so much. While in the affair and thick into the fog, I really thought I was so much happier than I had ever been. I was so blindsided by mixed emotions, and then guilt. I asked him to leave, which he did. He regrets not reading the 180. We did not fight after he left. He had full access to the kids. I did not ask him for a dime. I really thought if I wanted this, then I would do this alone. The Valentine's Day came, and I felt sick to my stomach over the pain I saw in his eyes. We talked and decided to make it work. I ended the affair on that day and never contacted the other person, although other man tried his best to try to manipulate me into continuing to see him on the side. I gave my husband the address of other man, and he drove his house and sat out front while on the phone with me. I tried calming him down. He was in a rage. He walked up to the house and threw something other man had left at our house while working here. Not a good situation. The guy was so paranoid he wouldn't come out of his house, and cowardly phoned hubby and apologized for the whole thing. Did my husband feel better with the apology? For about 5 minutes. He had so many plans of how to ruin this guy's life. He would come up with ways that would scare the crap out of me. In the end, he walked away. I felt I owed it to my marriage and my children to reconcile with my husband. I did not want to work on my marriage for my kids, but as a family. He's a great father no matter if we were together or not. I wouldn't want them to see us in a miserable marriage. My family is aware of the affair, except for my kids, those he didn't tell. I did myself. Did they play any role in my decision to return to my marriage? Not at all. They knew it wasn't a perfect marriage. Whose is? During the affair, I really didn't think much of anything. Just fed my selfish behavior. Did I think long term? Sometimes. Other times I was confused. Before the affair, I had a lot of resentment towards my husband. Yes, that's true. I didn't hate him though. He had a serious neck injury 15 years prior and required surgeries and physical therapy to overcome this. During this time, I felt I was in the caretaker role while my own needs were not met. Again, not the reason I had the affair, but possibly made it easier. Funny thing, when we first there was no hysterical bonding initially. I think in the first few weeks he had so much rage and pain that he didn't seem to crave that need to bond. After several weeks, when the rage subsided, he did experience the hysterical bonding. We both knew what it was as we had already done some research. I think you're right, it won't last. But knowing that element in our recovery, we can identify it when and if it becomes an issue and still go on and have a healthy bonding life. Our oldest son, who is 21, he came to me one morning crying and devastated to learn that his girlfriend of 2 years cheated on him. I really felt the pain and it crushed me inside to know that I could not protect him from such a heartbreak. I also didn't advise him in terms of ending the relationship, but asked him what he wanted to do, and helped he reflect on whether it was a relationship worth salvaging. In the end, he did end it, and that was his choice. But yes, it was hard seeing him suffer in such pain for a long time as my son. My interaction with other man was not purely physical. Of course it was emotional. He said everything I wanted to hear at the time, something I felt I wasn't getting at the time. Did I get tired of him? Drop him just like that? I pulled away from him while my husband and I were separated. He knew I was going back to my marriage. I just realized that it wouldn't have lasted with my guilt towards my husband and the pain I saw in his eyes when he would pick up our kids for the weekend. I knew that I would have to be alone for a while before starting a new relationship. Did it work out that way? No. Hubby and I are far too soon, where we should have worked on some issues first. We both wanted to get our family back together. Probably too soon. The incident with my son was 2 years prior to my affair. All my friends and family know of my affair. I had no say in the matter, and did not fight that. Friends and family will forgive easier than marriage partners. Comments. OP. The biggest problem you have standing in the way of recovery is that you cannot truly empathize with your BH. You can never feel the pain that your affair caused. I believe that the more a WS can understand the level of the destruction they caused, the better the chance at reconciliation. You talk about being the genuine you. The truth is that the kind of pain you dished out fundamentally changes the nature of the one hurt. I have never cried a day in my adult life, but when I discovered my WW's affair, I cried like a baby for days. If you ever get close to understanding the hurt you caused, you may be able to humble yourself, and it just might break some of your pride. I would guess that this is what your BH is looking for. I do think that you are genuine in your desire to recover your marriage, but the heavy work falls on you. You have to do everything in your power to help your BH recover from the trauma you have caused. Until that happens, it doesn't matter what was missing in your marriage that left you vulnerable to lowering your boundaries and having an affair. Try to show him every day, in every way possible, that you are committed to doing everything in your power to establish and enforce personal boundaries to prevent this from ever happening again. Also, let him grieve and just be there to help him. Don't make excuses, and let him know that his feelings are valid. The best thing you could ever say to him when he is angry or hurt is that you understand that this is all your fault and that he has every right to feel what he's feeling. OP responds, there's an element of my relationship with my husband that I have not shared, that I never wanted to share as to cloud my initial question. But I had a trigger today and thought I should come forward with this detail. 20 years ago, during the time when we were dating, 3 years I think, my husband had 2 ONS. He told me before I found out. And something I never thought about after until my own affair. We rug swept it, and I stuffed my pain. But this morning I thought about ways to show I'm really remorseful. And something came to me from 20 years ago that really stuck out in my mind. I don't remember much. I remember as he told me he was sobbing, sitting on the floor begging me to forgive him. We cried together and seemed to move on from it. I think I get it, that I haven't truly shown the remorse I should have. I don't think my decision to have an affair had anything to do with his choices 20 years ago. But on the other hand, maybe I thought it would just all go away as quick as it did back then. The other man was married, and yeah, we've been struggling over the fact that his wife needs to know that he's a cheat. Although she had suspicions. I guess I hesitated because I'm a coward and don't want the backlash from it. Hubby is at me full force with showing up at his door and letting his wife know what a scumbag her husband is. About a month later, I feel like the karma truck has hit me. Well, I guess it has for me. My husband is a great man to have put up with the bull crap I've thrown at him during my affair 9 months ago. I recently found out that my 6-year-old daughter is having a lot of difficulty academically. She seems to have problems focusing on class, and her report card was fair, with a lot of improvement needed. I feel like it's all my fault this is happening to her. If I hadn't made mistakes in the past, this wouldn't be happening. If only I had been a better mother and wife. What's worst is that I have no or little control, just as my husband had none during my affair. This really sucks. Anyway, just needed a place to put this. Karma at its best. We don't know exactly what the problem is. I gave the teacher permission to have her tested so that I can help her the best I can. I have also hired a tutor to help her with the basics. If she doesn't grasp the basics, she'll only fall further behind. I really think that the affair has contributed to her difficulties. Yes, I am a good mother. But no, I was not at my best during the affair. And even during I know I neglected her needs because I was so messed up. During hubby and I were so focused on our problems, that again the kids seemed to come second. Time to focus on my kids and help them heal from my own selfish mistakes. How do we get back towards living a normal life? It's been 9 months now. And I feel that while working on our marriage we have focused all our energy on the devastation it has caused our marriage. I read so many posts that say that couples are still having family life, dinners together, all while not bringing up the issues, or something to that effect. It's like this is always over our heads, setbacks or not. Yes, we spend as much family time as we can, but the dark cloud never seems to leave our lives. Sometime later. So, I got a call from my previous employer to do a shift tonight. For those of you who don't know my thing, I cheated on my husband and used to text while doing an overnight shift, clients all sleeping. I also lied about going to work and met up with other man. Hubby knows this, of course. This is a trigger for my husband, and so we talked about it before the holidays. And both decided it would be okay to pick up a few shifts here and there, and given the fact that we need the money. So, they called this him and hubby took the call, which was good in that he knows it's legit. Since I had lied on 2 occasions that I was going to work and met up with other man during the affair, he did not want to put a VAR in my car and justified it with the idea that if I'm going to cheat again, I'll figure a way to do it anyway. But I think he is starting to trust me as well. I guess what I didn't expect is that I would be triggering big time myself. Just walking into the building is making me nervous, like all the crap is going to come back. I'm totally over other man. It's not about missing him, etc. Just the lies, cheating, gaslighting, blame shifting I did during that time. Reminds me what a piece of garbage I was to my husband. Hubby says it might be a bit of PTSD. I'm starting to think he's right. Anyway, that's where I am today. For me it's not about temptation. I actually had a brief convo about this with a friend of mine. She said the same thing. I do have willpower. I'm not some weak woman looking for random guys. I don't mean to sound harsh, but I guess I'm a bit sensitive about that word. Just makes me seem like I don't have control over myself. I'm an open book now, no secrets. It's all about the boundaries I have to establish for myself. And I'm pretty clear about them. No, I think. Obviously, I still have work to do in this area. My big problem with the opposite gender is that I really can't pick up the friendly versus the hit-on. Hubby has always had to point this out to me. I'm very outgoing and friendly, so I don't know if they take it the wrong way. Maybe I'm naive, but it could be that I never had many boyfriends before hubby and nothing on the intimate level. When hubby and I really did not have much hope that our marriage would ever become what it once was. It was never perfect. We are very different in many ways. I take things in stride, drives him nuts sometimes, and he at times overanalyzes things to the end. But our immediate attraction 25 years ago was because we were so opposite. And eventually we seemed to complement each other. Over time, we drifted apart, I would say about 8 months before the affair. When we had our 2 smaller children, things got worse. We were older, and did not expect that they would drain our energy so much. I think it hit the lowest when we stopped sleeping together months prior to my affair. I was 43, my youngest was 3, and my desire was nil. I kept ignoring it, he kept pushing for it, and it only drove us further apart. I was traumatized by a C-section that went horrible, whereby a nurse had to come to our home and treat my open wound every day while he was at work. I resented the fact that he chose to continue to work when his wife was alone with a baby and a 2-year-old. In retrospect, I realized that after he had not worked for years due to his neck injury, he felt that by working, it was the only way he could feel better about himself. He could now provide for his family. I get that now. I thought he couldn't care less about me. I really didn't think at that point that anything was going to change. We went to MC. We'd only do the blaming thing. So we gave up on that as well. It was total hell. Then my affair happened. What surprised me the most was that I never thought I would be happy in my marriage again. Even after we decided to I thought he would just resent me and continue to show his hatred towards me. I felt it was doomed. I then found another sit which helped me deal with my obsessive feelings other man gave me. It was helpful in that respect. Then when I found this board, I read for a long time before having the courage to finally post. Boy, was I glad I did. I started to feel hopeful. I let go of my justifications, denial, selfish thinking, and started to see things from HS perspective. It changed everything, it seemed. I started to feel the love I once had for him. Something I did not ever feel possible. I can actually say I am at a point where I feel happy in my marriage again. Even though some days are hard, we are still able to laugh and have fun, which is something that is key in our marriage and I guess in most others. Anyway, I feel like I'm all over the place here. But I guess my emotions are sometimes as well. I think the next hurdle that needs to be overcome, the ways we sometimes deal with each other when problems occur. He tends to blame me for things that happen. I avoid conflict, so I wait to see if it will go away on its own. We both agree now that one of the issues we have is that I was only 18 when we met. I had no serious boyfriends before him, no partners, and I was a very naive and shy girl. I overcame my shyness, he helped with his outgoing personality, and basically grew up. He finally admitted that at times he still sees me as the meek and mild girl I once was, and therefore treats me accordingly. I think it's hard for him to see that I am a confident, outgoing person now, and deep down he wishes I was still her. And this is one of the reasons the affair hurt him so much. He just couldn't believe that this little shy and meek girl could do this, added with the level of deceit that was involved. And when I would continue to lie to him when he couldn't understand what had happened to me. I no longer lie to him. Even stranger is that I cannot even do it. I would feel so guilty. It's a trigger for me now. And there is nothing to lie about. Everything about me is in the open now. I'm honest about my feelings. Completely. He said something interesting last night. He said that the affair has not made our marriage better, but the fact that we are communicating more has. Last week was probably the most difficult week since D-Day. My husband was triggering horribly. We're not sure what exactly started it. He says I was pulling away, which could be true. I know he's still insecure as a result of my affair. I don't get mad if he calls me 10 times during the day or sends endless texts and then worries if I don't answer right away. But he senses a little frustration. I think it can feel at times smothering, and I just need time to myself. He's afraid to leave me alone because of his own fear of what things could happen. He has this need to get into my head and know what I'm thinking. This mostly happens when triggers are full force. So, he feels me pulling away from him, and he immediately comes to the conclusion that I must be in contact with other man and planning to move in with him since his wife, apparently, will kicking him out this month. Knowing this is a trigger for him, the whole month will be hell for him. I think, no matter what I said to him, he could not calm down and think rationally. I understand his fears and tried to reassure him. He listened to every word I said, and then would pick out certain things that he felt were questionable. He then searched my phone, asked if I had deleted messages, which I didn't. I only delete when phone is full, and he's pretty much the only person I text with. He then finds nothing, heads to the computer, checks email, and as a last resort comes to my journals. He reads sometimes, looking for something I may have shared about meeting other man. He then reads the one about bonding that I wasn't comfortable writing about. He already knew about it, but it didn't help reading it. He flipped out, and basically said a lot of hurtful things, mostly stuff that I had done, but with the added little dig. All the while I am trying to be patient and listen, knowing he was triggering, knowing that it wouldn't last. It came to a headset night. He said he phoned about an apartment. I was shocked, and asked him if that was what he wanted, that we've come this far, and now give up. We talked and I told him that I did not want him to leave. I loved him, and reminded that I am sorry for what I did, that it will never happen again, that it made me sick to see him this way. He finally broke down and cried. We both did. We got a lot out, and Sunday was much better. I'm not scared to upset him. I actually lost my temper on set. I just yelled, leave me alone. It's hard though. I'll tell him exactly where I'm going, like grocery store. And I'll say I'll be back in 45 minutes. He'll then respond that I don't have to go into details like that, but then other times he needs them. I can't win. I don't think I feel obligated to sleep with him. I want to feel close to him. On the other hand, I feel guilty if I reject him. I feel like I rejected him so much during the affair. And with him moving out, there have been times where I have not been in the mood and have said it in a manner that he wouldn't feel like he was unwanted. You know that discarded feeling BSs have. Comments, here's the way I see it, and I don't want to sound too harsh. But first, your H will never be able to fully get through this until he is ready. He can talk to his counselor every day about everything that triggers his emotions, but until he is able to forgive. Never forget, because whatever the cause of the infidelity needs to always be remembered so as not to go back to the place that led to the event. And he is willing to let things go and move on. It will never work out with the two of you still being together. I don't say this as an excuse, but I have been there and I am still trying to recover. We are 16 months out from D-Day, and there are days that my H, who had the PA, can do everything I ask and everything he should be doing, but I still get crazy and start to have all of these random thoughts and feelings, and sometimes it even takes a few days for me to get through it. However, here's where I think some things need to be taken into consideration. Just because you have dealt with your issues and seem to be okay with what you've done doesn't mean he is. Remember, you have had more time to deal with your choices from the day you decided to go outside of the marriage. You started dealing with what you were doing. Your H, on the other hand, has only had from the time that D-Day happened. You have worked through many emotions already, and he still has many to go through. Things will either get better and you two will end up in a happy marriage, or, and this might be hard to deal with, he may not be able to actually forgive you for what happened, and you two might go your separate ways. This all lies on your shoulders, but the one choice he didn't make and he had no control of was to have his wife step outside of the marriage. Sometimes, very drastic measures must be taken, and if your affair actually happened in the home you share, it might make sense to leave the home. It won't be a quick decision, but taking the steps to get this going may be something that is necessary. And just know you may be doing everything he needs and asks you to do, but there are going to be days, sometimes several at a time, that his emotions are out of control and you just need to love him through them. OP responds, I'm not okay with what I've done. I was in a lot of denial at the beginning, not realizing the gravity of the destruction I have caused. I am guilt-ridden and ashamed of what I have done. There are good days and bad days, like you say. I agree. I'm not sure separation is the answer though. I think I'm just finally breaking down, as though everything is really sinking in now. I'm big at stuffing my emotions. I don't want to bother anyone. This is a big problem, and then it all comes to a head, and I end up cracking. The last couple of days have been hard for my husband, and I feel sick that he's worried about me like this. He's anxious and calling every half hour, worried that I'm going to do something. I keep reassuring him that I'm not, that things have just sunk in. And the pain of what has happened to us just overwhelms me at times. We're both very sensitive people, and we both know when each of us is not happy. We not only feel it, but we react to it. Last night I went out with a friend for coffee, and on the way, I became disoriented, just for a minute, and got lost. It's just this weird feeling I have. 1 minute I'm feeling flat. The next, I just burst into tears. The other thing is, I started a stop smoking med last week, and I'm wondering if I'm feeling the side effects. When other man called weeks ago, he said his wife was throwing him out after Christmas. He also said he was getting an apartment in January. So yeah, this is bothering my husband. He still believes to some extent that I will go back to him, although he says it's only 10%. It's enough to trigger him though. We also have to go to court sometime in the future and sue him for the work he never finished in our basement. Hubby is afraid he might harm him. Hubby will be going to court and sent a registered letter stating what will occur, and that he is to not have any contact with me. Only my husband. He never responded in order to make arrangements for payment. I paid someone to finish some of the work, He will be a witness, full steam ahead. He has told me that sometimes he gets angry because he wants me to feel his pain, but also wants to make sure that I won't forget so I don't cheat on him again. I guess it makes sense. I've told him that because of the consequences I would never do this again, and I mean it. The problem is that all it takes is one time, and yeah, he'll always have reminders of what happened. It's the working through them we have to work on. I really am trying. I don't keep anything from him. He even reads my posts. Knows I have a couple people I PM to. It's all out there for him to see. He just loved me so much before, protected me from any form of pain I received, supported every choice I made in the last 25 years. And to just give it up for a jerk, he can't understand. I think the main problem is that I have been very open with everything. My feelings, his feelings, and shared a lot of my life. I have always been an open person, and always will answer questions truthfully. But people don't ask me questions. They assume what they feel must be true because guess what? I cheated, lied, etc. It really never leaves a person's mind when reading my posts. Husband sees a very qualified therapist who has experience in PSTD and infidelity. The problem is that at this point he does not want to even let go of anything because then it will mean that I will forget to and will not work on the marriage. It also means that if he starts the process of moving on, it allows his heart to open up and be free to be hurt all over again. Update: my marriage is over. Apparently infidelity is a deal breaker for my husband. My husband went to his sister's house yesterday and came home around 4 in the morning. This is the first time he has ever left so willingly, so ready to move on if he needed to. I didn't beg or plead with him to stay. I was numb to it really. After the kids went to bed, that's when I felt it. Is this really the end to 25 years? I tried to sleep in the bed, but couldn't, so I just lay on the couch in the dark, just thinking about what I have done to him in the last year. I kept looking at the time wondering when he was going to come home. I really missed him. Just his presence in the house is a comfort for me. It's like when he took me to my first concert, Billy Idol. We had crappy seats. And he said to me, "Grab my hand, we're going to the front row so you can see him up close." I was scared, but when he grabbed my hand, I felt safe. I trusted his word. I was so in love with him. I remember working at a summer camp and we had to be apart for 2 months. I remember finding the biggest art paper I could find and filled it up with "I miss you" and just sharing every detail of my days away from him. I think I sent him letters almost every day, and then he drove 9 hours to spend one day with me. He missed me as well. I snuck him into my cabin. I didn't care if I got caught. We chilled all night and just talked. We had not even been completely intimate at that point. When we had our fights, it was just as intense. We'd scream and say awful things to each other. We broke up for a few days when we were dating. He was devastated. I wouldn't take his calls, refused to talk to him. I sat at home depressed, but stubborn as hell. I even forget what the fight was about. His mother finally called me and begged me to come see him. She was almost in tears. She told me she was worried about her son and that she had never seen him like this. He was drinking heavily and isolating in his bedroom. My heart sank. I thought he was going to X himself. I begged my mom for the car. I didn't have a license and drove over to his house. What I saw I still see even today, and how I ever forgot about that during my affair I'll never know. The way he was curled up in a ball on the sofa in his room, just sobbing. I held him for what seemed forever. I didn't want to lose him either. I guess you really don't know how much you really love someone, and actually want and need them until they are willing to walk away from it all. Even his kids. I realized at that point that because of my actions, and the level of cruelty I subjected him to, he was willing to say goodbye. It had to be just as painful for him to leave, but it was too painful to continue the way we were. When we finally talked today, I was discouraged, lost. I wanted to tell him that I love him, that I missed him last night. But again, my pride got in the way. I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't plead with him to never leave my side again. We talked for hours, and without him yelling. We hadn't slept much in days. He was drained, fed up with the suffering of the last 9 or so months. I really didn't know what to say to make him see that I love him more than anything. So, I brought up a trip we took to Memphis 6 years ago. He was just starting a new career as a social worker, and just landed his first job. He was so proud to have a job after studying for 3 years and being home on disability for so long. Unfortunately, it was a horrible job for him. A woman had it out for him the entire few months he was there. She was angry at a comment he made as a joke. She was an extreme feminist. He had no idea. And when he called her princess when she snubbed her nose at his coffee, she almost ruined his new career. He'd call me every day almost in tears, pacing the parking lot. Finally, I said, "Quit that job. You need to get out of there." Years later he crossed paths with her, and she tried it again, this time feeling more secure in another job. He went after her and people finally saw who she really was. She lost all respect from her colleagues, and almost lost her job. My husband always loved Elvis since he was a kid, and his dream was to visit Graceland. I had just inherited money. I told him that day we were leaving in 2 days for the road trip. The radio barely worked, but it didn't bother us. We would cheer when we would get reception. I was so happy to see him smile again. It was all worth it. So, as I lay on the sofa, I thought of these memories that I haven't thought of in a very long time. Did I just forget them when I had my affair? Where was my mind when making the decision to cheat on my husband? I know at the time I wanted to be selfish. I wanted something for me, where it came from. I'm still working on. This is what I need to realize, that as intense as his anger is towards me, is as intense as his love is for me. I didn't feel that before my affair. I didn't feel he needed me. He was doing fine. He was happy in his job. I needed to feel and see for whatever the reason that he was devoted to us. But in reality, he was, and this is where my own issues with myself won over, and therefore led to my decision to abandon my marriage. So tonight, he was sitting at the kitchen table on his laptop, and all of a sudden, I hear my favorite Elvis song, Suspicious Minds. He had our daughter on his lap, and she was moving and grooving to Elvis. I laughed and grabbed my 4-year-old son and made him dance with me in the kitchen. The kids loved it, and for the first time in a long time everyone seemed happy. So, I finally told him I wanted him to stay. We agreed it's going to be a very long road ahead of us. We talked about patience. I don't always have it, but I also have a need to fix things immediately. I have to learn how to feel my own pain over what I did and learn to live with it, not just expect it to go away. That's where we're at today. Sorry if it's so long. I used to journal as a teen and have a whole suitcase full of loose papers and doodles. I remembered it helped me get through some of the craziness of adolescence. Maybe this can help me again. My comment: this is part 1 of a 2-part story. I need to sleep and finish up the part 2. Part 2 will be released very soon. So, sub and bell and we'll see you there.